Well everyone, welcome back to this scenario where the Egyptian Empire from Altson's Wixo beats the Sinai coalition. After it being heavily wanted, I'm making a part 2 to this story, as many people, including myself, had wanted it. Anyway, onto the scenario. So this will pick up right after the Baikal War. In our original timeline, Baikal was split up extremely, although in this time, some land was taken, a few countries were given independence, and then they got split in two. That was about it. Now the reason for this is very corrupt. The Swedish and Chinese heavily dominated the treaty, and because of this, huge tension happened between Sweden, China, and Egypt, especially with the Square Alliance being massacred. Sweden, with Egypt losing this much, is now the dominant world power at the moment, and they want to heavily screw over the Egyptians to be safe, and the Chinese also want to screw over Egypt, as well as Sweden. In the end, Sweden gets the way, with two massive, but crippled Baikali nations. East Baikal was mostly neutral, especially with China helping them economically. Although Crimson Baikal was not the same, exactly 1 month after the Baikal Peace Treaty, Crimson Baikal, with their hatred for the Egyptian Empire, naming them as one of the main reasons for their collapse, will declare a full-scale war on Egypt, doing exactly as the Swedish had hoped. Egypt had already been very weak after the war, dropping to the third strongest nation overall, behind Crimson Baikal, and had no alliance to save them, especially with their infrastructure and people being destroyed from the previous Baikali invasion, and now with this one, Egypt stands little chance. Crimson Baikal will quickly push in on the Caucasus front and Persian front, and very quickly will loosely connect up with the Caspian. In fear of them being next, Dark Blue Persian will also heavily support the Egyptian Empire, although this won't help Egypt much with breaking through the front lines. To make things even worse for Egypt, Mesopotamia, after over a century, will rebel from their puppet state. Although, due to increased Persian help, and also the Egyptians beginning full mobilization, they will be able to break into the Caspian front and unconnected the Baikali front, although the Baikali will cut Egypt off from a province in Persia, as well as making it so now the Persians have to naval help across the Persian Sea, and now Mesopotamia has fully rebelled from their puppet state and is coordinating with Crimson Baikal. Seeing this war only getting worse and worse for Egypt, as well as even more rebels popping up, the Square Alliance will begin to debate if they also, despite being extremely war-torn, wanna enter this war. But in the meantime, we also have to discuss Sweden, we already know about earlier, and their anti-Egypt sentiments, but now they will actually use this. They were not only using this war to cripple Egypt even worse, but they also used this to begin the start of their empire and great alliance. Seeing as the world is distracted by Egypt, Sweden will begin their invasion of Norway, which will go very well for them, resulting in them getting puppet. Their next thing will be beginning a revolution in the yellow team. They know that for their greater plans for the future, they need to use the yellow team. So with this, the coup will begin, and quickly the nation will fall. Joining the Star Alliance, along with Karelia, and Sweden has achieved what they need for now, and things will go even better for them, as the Square Alliance will finally make their decision. The Squares collectively agree to declare war on Egypt. Once again, a similar invasion will begin, with the Greeks and Turkish moving down their peninsulas, and Carthage going down the coast, while Rome takes Italy. But seeing the Greek armies quickly move south, Pink Romania will take their chance, already being very friendly with Egypt, will declare war on Greece. And on the other side, Baikal will find out that Persia is supplying Egypt. Quickly they will invade and split them, as well as making a landing in Arabia, blocking Persia or Egypt from contacting each other, although Persia will make a small invasion. We will also see Mesopotamia begin invasions into Egypt, helping two huge encirclements begin. With this happening, Egypt will begin to lose hope, much of their population tired of war. Egypt will also give a strip of land in Djibouti over to Somalia, in turn for a guarantee of them not joining the war. In some good news for Egypt, Greece will quickly collapse over to Pink Romania and Egypt. Although Pink Romania will continue an invasion into Turkey, this is when a plan is formed. Pink Romania, Persia, and Egypt all don't like the Squares and Baikal, so in attempts to save their nations, and each other, Egypt, Pink Romania, and Persia will form the Diamond Alliance. Also in this video I call them diamonds, although they're technically four-sided stars. Although this is a huge moral boost, Crimson Baikal will still eliminate the two encirclements, as well as Mesopotamia expanding, and the squares too. The alliance will decide the best call of action is to finish off the squares first, so a bigger coalition doesn't form. Quickly Pink Romania and Egypt will topple Turkey. Although they begin to struggle against Carthage, in return, they decide to surprise land in Rome, which will go very good. And after many grueling battles, Rome and Carthage will be very near collapse. Seeing as they are bound to lose this, the Square Alliance and the Diamond Alliance will meet in Tunisia to discuss a peace treaty. Here are the following rules to the Treaty of Tunis. 1. The African Union will form between what remains of Carthage and Morocco. 2. Rome will lose a huge amount of land to Egypt. 3. Greece and Turkey will be divided and puppet by Pink Romania and Egypt. 4. Rome and the African Union are banned from being in an alliance together. With this, the Square Alliance will be gone, and out of the war for good, leaving tons of Egyptian and Pink Romanian troops to be able to move to the Caspian front. Seeing as Pink Romania is supplied tons to Baikal, they will invade into Ukraine, to surprise invade, and knock Ukraine out of the war. At first this invasion will go good, but Pink Romania will begin to move their troops in, to help Ukraine, pushing the front lines back. We will also see a huge success, with Egypt pushing in and cutting Baikali front lines for the Caspian again. After this they will quickly invade into Mesopotamia, and the Baikali landing in Arabia. Seeing continued loss, Baikal will peace out with Egypt, as both nations' people are very tired and war-torn, and by now this war has gone on for years. In the peace treaty, Baikal will take land from Egypt, including puppeting land in the Persian region, but Egypt will be able to connect up with the Caspian. Mesopotamia will once again be puppet, and Persia will lose a lot of land, but they will puppet some from Baikal. Lastly, we will also see Ukraine join the Diamond Alliance. Some time will pass, including Egypt expanding into Africa. Russia will also expand into Siberia. They do this out of fear, to prevent Sweden from expanding into Siberia, and also to be prepared for a possible Crimson Baikal invasion. On the other side of things, the Dutch and Sweden will split Denmark. This will be alarming to other nations, although it will be made worse, as next the Dutch invade England, and Scotland will also quickly jump in as well to salvage some land. After this, the Dutch will begin to move their troops over to the French border. The people of France will be extremely alarmed by this, and start paranoid that the Dutch will invade. Very quickly, France will fall into madness, with a revolution rising up across the nation. These fronts will go back and forth, as well as the Dutch invading. Both Sweden and Egypt will begin funding the French government, trying to get them as an ally, and as they figure out each other is doing this, they will do it even more, as this begins to be a sort of race. Until Egypt realizes something, this is slowly becoming a proxy, so to get at least one of them on their side, they begin supporting the French rebels now that they have connected up with the coast. Now with the Dutch pieced out, there will be one main front line, and the war will be extremely back and forth, and become very brutal. As the main front line becomes fully established, it will become locked down, but this will take a huge further step when the Swedish send troops over to France. Shortly after this Egypt will too, and this is becoming a full-on proxy war between the two alliances. Eventually, both French nations will call for an end to the war to stop the bloodshed, and they will agree. South France will join the Diamonds, and North France will join the Stars. Quickly after this they will rush to Iberia. A proxy is avoided, although Pyrenesia will join the Diamonds, and Galicia, the Stars, once friends turn to the other side because of their alliances. Just a year after the Second Baikal War, a Cold War is already starting between Sweden and Egypt, something the world had never expected. On the other side of the world, we will see the Triangle Alliance form between China, that brown North China thing, Tibet, and Taiwan. This isn't meant to attack any nations, more as just a sphere of influence protection. Moving a bit into the future, we will see Tibet slowly begin to be carved up, as well as after a long time, Arabia getting split, with all of them getting a good amount of land, including India. The Indian Empire connects up with Egypt in Yemen, as they have just joined the Diamond Alliance, and India will also finally take the Andaman Island chain. Now, something important to note is the alliances only connect up in one region, France and Spain, and these countries, realizing this is a full-on Cold War, need more front lines, so the Pink Romanians will begin the orders, starting with an invasion of the Purple Serbian nation. Most of it will be annexed, but some of it will be added to their puppet. Seeing what the Diamond Alliance is doing, the Stars will quickly start a coup in the Green team. Quickly Pink Romania will rush in, and the nations will jump to see who can destroy the Green team first and better. Eventually, the coup will succeed, and Pink Romania will take the territory they got, resulting in even more front lines established. On the other side of the world, we will continue to see Tibet split up, and something interesting happens during this. Indonesia had already rivaled India, and now that they took those islands, it went too far. Indonesia joins the Triangle Alliance, a huge gain. With this comes something much more important. The Chinese Triangle Alliance has officially begun their entry into this Cold War, turning it into a tripolar system. With this, the Chinese will begin an operation to take down the Japanese Isles. With the help of Tokyo, Japan will quickly fall to the triangles, leaving East Asia dominated by the triangles, although many nations are starting to get angered. But not soon after, yet another important thing happens. Sweden will make a landing in Quebec, trying to get to their Greenland colony. This will result in them finding the Americas. Now we will do a huge time skip. This era is known as the cooling down era, where the Cold War will mostly come to a halt, especially with the colonization. So now with this time skip, we will see a lot happen. The Japanese, Dutch, both French countries, Galicia, and Pyrenesia will land in North America, as well as Gibraltar, Indonesia, and the African Union will land in South America. Yes, this part is a bit unrealistic, but I think it will happen some one way. Seeing increasing tensions across the world, Crimson Baikal and Egypt will sing a non-aggression pact, although Egypt had to pay a lot for this. But now we will see something very long-awaited. Gibraltar will declare war on the Salmon team, quickly rushing in and taking their land, fully annexing them. Not long after this, with Gibraltar having heavily increased morale, they will send an ultimatum to the African Union. They must give the Strait of Gibraltar, and some other coastal land, or it's war. The African Union will deny this, and the invasion will begin. Across the coast, Gibraltar will invade, quickly taking their claimed land, and they will even begin to push into their American colony, although this will be a lot slower. But back on the main front, Gibraltar will continue to win, but very slowly, and they will get cocky trying to win the war quicker, and will make a landing in North Tunisia, which will be a grave mistake. This event will alarm Egypt, and the alliance will declare war on Gibraltar, with Pyrenesia rushing into the nation, although Gibraltar will capitulate their American colony. Although this short-lived advance would be lost, as they lost all hold over their front line with the Pyrenees team, and quickly the African Union will invade, along with Galicia, and the nation will capitulate very quick. It will be fully divided up, with Galicia massively expanding, along with the Pyrenees country, and the African Union get their colony, and puppet some Iberian land. Although this is over, tons of ships and military will begin to be transported across the West Mediterranean, and many nations will begin to fear. With this, Rome, seeing they could easily get jumped, will be accepted into the Stars. With this, the African Union will be left alone, as troops are moved to their border. And even more naval units pop up, including Pyrenees ones. With all this chaos, the African Union will join the Star Alliance. But this will be called out quickly. As in the Treaty of Tunis, the peace agreement from the Second Sinai coalition between the Squares and Egypt, the fourth clause of the agreement states, Rome and the African Union are banned from being in an alliance with each other, and both of them now being in the Stars Alliance, technically violates this code. The Egyptians and Diamond Alliance as a whole will quickly begin to ponder about this. And they eventually will send an ultimatum over to the Star Alliance, kick out Rome and the African Union, or it's war. And the Stars will send back a message saying, so it's war, beginning World War I. The Great War will start with Egypt begging an invasion into the African Union, and also making a landing, meaning the naval things were good suspicions as they were true. We will also see an invasion into Rome, which will quickly succeed, as Rome was very crippled after the Second Sinai coalition, similar to Greece and Turkey after the First Sinai coalition. We will also see the South French do an invasion into Rome, although it will be small, as their main front with North France is very back on fourth. Also we will see the front line mostly stalemated between Galicia and Pyrenees team, although they will invade into the African Union, which Galicia wasn't supposed to do. That was a mistake while getting the screenshots. We will also see the African Union push back against Egypt. But now to the Eastern Europe front, Poland will decide to join the diamonds as they see getting lots out of it. Quickly pink Romania and Poland will jump the green country, and they will both move north into Kaliningrad and the Swedish claim. Galicia will also go on a side quest and capitalize the South French colony in South Carolina. Speaking of South France, they will begin to heavily lose against France. Pyrenesia will also not be able to help, as Galicia will heavily break though their front lines, although at least they will take much coast from the African Union, as well as Egypt splitting them from Tunisia and connecting up with Pyrenesia. Previously, the war had been back and forth, but now the Chinese Triangle Alliance had finally sent their ultimatum over to the Diamonds: end the war, or it's war, and the Diamonds will immediately deny this, as they have had a trick up their sleeve since the beginning. Central China, South China, Korea, and Taiwan will join up with the Diamond Alliance, all vowing to get revenge on their enemies once and for all, with the help of all of them will quickly go on a pre-coordinated attack, seeing mass success, although Indonesian will be able to take some Indian islands. Things over in France and Iberia will go increasingly worse for the Diamonds, and the Pyrenees country will begin heavily taxing their colony, as well as recruiting many troops from them. We will also see Egypt knock out the encirclement in Tunisia, a huge win. And now that they need less troops from that front line, they will move their troops up to Italy, and do something that many countries don't like. Pink Romania, Poland, and Egypt will invade Croatia to get better connection with their troops. In the meantime, the Asian front will continue to go amazing. But we must go back to talk about Poland. They are a military powerhouse, and have now invaded for countries, and is starting to get tired of this war, as their front lines begin to stalemate, so they will decide to peace out. On one side, they lost a huge ally, but on the other side pink Romania can move their troops over to Iberia. But something that will be horrible is after the huge taxing and recruitment from their colony, it will rebel, becoming independent. Although the recruiting will work for what it did, as Pyrenesia pushed back Galicia. Although it will not help the French front at all, the world is now coming to realize that South France was still just a rebellion and wasn't very organized, and has now been split in half. Things will go even worse as the Diamond Alliance will begin to crumble in Asia. Although it may look like the war is stalemated, it's slowly falling against the Diamond Alliance, and it seems as though the Egyptian Empire has ended up on the wrong side of history. As all across the Egyptian Empire, a revolution will begin to topple the government and make a return to the nations from the Sinai coalition so long ago. Right after this the Romans will rebel, and quickly take all of the Italian peninsula, and quickly the rebellion will topple. Almost all of southern Egypt, quickly pink Romania will invade into Egypt and take as much land as they can, to salvage what they can of the empire. Rome will continue to advance, the African Union will go back to the border, and pretty much every nation leave the Diamond Alliance, seeing it collapsing. And in a very short time period, Egypt, the once great empire, will fall over to the rebels, pink Romania, Rome, and the African Union. It seems as though Egypt had ended up in the wrong side of history, and beating the Sinai coalition was just prolonging their death. And it looks that the war has ended in a mostly Star Alliance victory, but notice, I said it looks, as something has been happening this whole time, right in front of you. 1 week after the Egyptian Empire falls, the Dutch will declare war on the Star Alliance, vowing to restore their once great empire, once and for all. They will quickly rush into the war-torn France, with the southern rebels quickly hopping in. Next they will go over to Sweden, with most of their military and allied nations, and not expecting this, they will quickly rush into Denmark, and even the southern Swedish peninsula. And after this happens, the war will slow down everywhere, and World War I will come to an end, technically a triangle and star victory, although only certain nations on those sides won, and much of the Diamond Alliance also technically won. Anyway, onto the peace treaty. We will start with the Dutch, who will take much of North France, the Danish peninsula, and some areas in western Sweden. If there was any true winner to this war, it was the Dutch. Anyway, now for the western Mediterranean, Iberia will be mostly split between Galicia and Pyrenesia, with the African Union technically losing. Yes, Galicia was attacking the African Union even though they're on the same side. That was a mistake. South France will also take lots of land, and become blue again now that they're the only France to proclaim they're the true successor, and also because yellow just looks weird in that region. For the West Mediterranean, we will see a massive pink Romanian Empire, which could possibly suffer a civil war due to how many nations they hold within them. Rome will hold over all of the Italian peninsula for the first time in history. And Croatia will pretty much be left to just the coast, but something even more sad will happen, sadder than the fall of Egypt, that is, Greece, will come back and lay over the full Greek peninsula after centuries. Also, all these Mediterranean nations will leave their respective alliances, as the diamonds collapsed, and the stars got pretty much set back to their original form. Also Poland will get what they had earlier, and Königsberg will be put under their previous government form. Now for the big one, Egypt, the African Union will take lots of coastal territory. Turkey will after a long time be restored to their previous empire. Mesopotamia will be huge. Bahrain will just be given lots of land, as well as Somalia taking the Indian claim on Yemen. We will see Sudan become independent. Also, Crimson Baikal will strangely be given some land, despite not doing anything. And lastly, due to Pink Romania's invasion to salvage what they could, Egypt won't be treated too harsh, and will go back to how they looked pre-Sinai coalition. Indonesia will also be given these Indian islands I still don't know the name of. Taiwan will be split between China and Indonesia, South China will take some land, Central China will lost tons to Tibet, Korea will be back to how they were. So the Asian front did little to nothing other than stopping them from fighting India and Egypt. With this, the world will be split up without having any true dominant power anymore, and with that goes the fall of the Egyptian Empire, once and for all. Thank you to everyone who watched this video and has stuck with this series, it means a lot to me. If this video does okay in the algorithm, and people want it, I could make a part 3 to this as I do already have a plot for it in the back of my mind. Anyway, with that, see you next time.